Chapter 7. The Fakirs and their Doctrines. The perfect man gains his power through developing the mystic force inherent in the body. This is centered in the 5 secret organs, the lataif. These are the heart center, the spirit center, the secret center, the hidden center, the most mysterious center. Sheikh Ahmed al-Abbasi, Secrets of Sufi Power, a development of Shah Muhammad Gwath's Secrets of the Mystic Way, Azra ut Tarikat of the Naqshbandiya order. The West, which prides itself with some justification upon having rescued from oblivion many aspects of Oriental culture and learning, has been profoundly influenced by tasawwuf, the doctrine of the Fakirs. The word is incorrectly used, of course, to describe itinerant jugglers in India. A similar vulgarization is that of the word magician in English, where it is generally used to denote a juggler or illusionist. Yet how many people, apart from a handful of Orientalists, can say what this is? Yoga, Shinto, Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism all have their devotees in Europe and America. Yet Sufism, the ultimate mystical sanction of the Arabs, Persians, Turks, and the rest of the Muslim world, remains the last closed book of the mysterious East. Is Sufism a religion, an occult cult, a way of life? It is in part all of these things and none of them. Among the 400 million followers of Islam, tasawwuf commands a power such as no political, social, or economic creed does here or elsewhere. Organized in a semi-monastic, semi-military fashion, this amazing philosophy was shared by elements as diverse as the ancient Arab alchemists, the Brethren of Purity, the Mahdist warriors of the Sudan, and the greatest classical poets of Persia. Under the banner of the Fakirs, literally the humble ones, the Turkish Empire's dervishes stormed Vienna. Urged on by Sufi mystical poetry, and, it is claimed, supernatural power, the Afghans conquered India. Then, on the other side of the coin, Sufi literature and culture were responsible for some of the outstanding architecture and art of Asia. What are the origins of this strange cult, which even modern researchers acknowledge to be still the strongest single force in the Middle East today? In spite of the fact that a considerable literature on the subject exists in Oriental languages, nothing is known with complete certainty as to the very beginnings of the cult. Sufi historians trace their foundation to Muhammad himself, but it has been stated that this esoteric cult stems from man's earliest strivings to liberate his ego from material things. Mystics and miracle workers of this type were known in Arabia even before Muhammad. Most Sufis hold that the cult dates from Adam himself, and is actually the only true secret tradition of high occultism. This, in fact, is the main aim of the movement. Sufism is a distinct and very complete way of life, setting as its goal the realization of man's and woman's believed role in life. Man, argue the Sufi saints, is part of the eternal whole, from which everything is derived, and to which all must return. His mission is in preparing himself for that return. This can only be achieved through purification. When the human soul is correctly harnessed to the body and has obtained complete control over it, then man appears in his perfect form. The perfect man, in fact, emerges as closely resembling the Superman, possessed of amazing powers, who figures in the aspirations of Eastern and Western occultism alike. There are distinct steps by which a seeker progresses towards this end. Organized in orders resembling the monastic orders of the Middle Ages, alleged by some to have been modelled on Sufism, the first condition of enrollment is that the recruit must be in the world but not of it. This is the first important respect in which the cult differs from almost every other mystical philosophy. For it is fundamental that every Sufi must devote his life to some useful occupation. His aim being to become an ideal member of society, it naturally follows that he cannot cut himself off from the world. In the words of one authority, man is destined to live a social life. His part is to be with other men. In serving Sufism, he is serving the infinite, serving himself, and serving society. He cannot cut himself off from any one of these obligations and become or remain a Sufi. The only discipline worthwhile is that which is achieved in the midst of temptation. A man who, like the anchorite, abandons the world and cuts himself off from temptations and distractions cannot achieve power. For power is that which is won through being wrested from the midst of weakness and uncertainty. The ascetic living a holy monastic life is deluding himself. Though the word fakir has come to be used in the West as denoting a kind of itinerant juggler or wonder worker, its real meaning is merely a humble man. Humility of the seeker is the first requirement. He must renounce his struggle for mere worldly aims until he gets the reason for life into the correct perspective. This is not, in fact, contradictory, for a man may legitimately enjoy the things of the world, provided that he has learnt humility in their application. What has given Sufis, in their role of fakirs or dervishes, that halo of invulnerability, infallibility, and superiority is the application of this doctrine. There is no doubt at all that the concentration of mind achieved by Sufis is responsible for what could be classed as truly supernatural manifestations. There are instances, recorded with as much historical accuracy as one may expect anywhere, of the strange power of some of these men. Approaching the question in as scientific a manner as possible, many are the instances of bogus Sufis merely playing upon the gullibility of the masses. On the other hand, tens of thousands of unbiased people are convinced of the fact that tasawwuf can bring power of an unheard-of degree to some of its practitioners. It is necessary to point out here, as in other parts of this book, that such manifestations may, if true, merely be the application of secrets of nature which are as yet imperfectly understood by orthodox science. What are the miracles and powers attributed to the Sufi saints? While there is almost no thaumaturgic phenomenon which has not been claimed by some authority as performed by dervishes, some miracles are more characteristic of the cult than others. The first one, in conformity with the belief that time is non-existent, is the annihilation of conventional time. Stories, some of them on the authority of meticulously accurate historians, covering this phenomenon are many and varied. Perhaps the most famous is the case of the Sheikh Shahab el-Din. He was able to induce, it is said, the appearance of fruits, people, and objects absolutely at will. It is related of him that he once asked the Sultan of Egypt to place his head in a vessel of water. Instantly the Sultan found himself transformed into a shipwrecked mariner, cast ashore in some totally unknown land. He was rescued by woodsmen, entered the nearest town, vowing vengeance against the sheikh whose magic had placed him in this plight, and started work there as a slave. After a number of years he gained his freedom, started a business, married, and settled down. Eventually, becoming impoverished again, he became a freelance porter in an attempt to support his wife and 7 children. One day, chancing to be by the seashore again, he dived into the water for a bathe. Immediately he found himself back in the palace at Cairo, again the king, surrounded by courtiers, with the grave-faced sheikh before him. The whole experience, though it had seemed like years, had taken only a few seconds. This application of the doctrine that time has no meaning to the Sufi is reflected in a famous instance of the life of Muhammad. It is related that the Prophet, when setting out on his miraculous night journey, was taken by the angel Gabriel to heaven, to hell, and to Jerusalem. After 80 conferences with God, he returned to earth, just in time to catch a pot of water that had been overturned when the angel took him away. In addition to the non-existence of time, space plays little part in preventing the Sufi adept from travelling where he will. Transportation of many of the most famous Sufi teachers is said to have been a common event. Sufis have been seen at the same time in places many thousands of miles apart. Sheikh Abdul Qadir Gilani, one of the most celebrated saints of Sufism, was believed to have travelled thousands of miles in a flash in order to be present at the funeral of some fellow adept. Walking upon the surface of water and flying enormous distances in the full view of people on the ground are other wonders said to be regularly performed by the initiates. Miracles, as such, are thought to be possible only to prophets, but wonders, karamat, are held to be possible to a great number of Sufis. The activities of magicians, which are generally a form of deception worked upon gullible people, are classed as istidraj, signifying mere conjuring tricks and works of stealth. Magic proper, by which is meant thaumaturgy through the aid of spirits, is an entirely different branch of occult science. Organization of the orders. Mystical orders of this type lay down rigid rules in a set pattern for aspirants to Sufi power. Apart from those who pursue the cult alone, all new recruits must be accepted according to a formula by a pir, or teacher. Sons follow in their father's footsteps in entering the order to which their parent belonged, and only those who have been recommended by certain sponsors may be accepted as disciples into the first degree of salik, or seeker. Orders, which are named after their founder, Naqshbandiya, Chishtiya, Qadiriya, etc., are organized in groups standing under acknowledged masters. Promotion from one degree to the next is through a patent or declaration by the master of the group to which the acolyte belongs. In order to study a particular branch of the art, students may travel from Morocco to Java or from as far afield as China to Libya to join the halqa or circle of a celebrated teacher. Then, if the latter agrees, the candidate will be placed on probation for some months. Living a life of poverty, dressed perhaps in saffron robes and performing menial tasks, the seeker during the period of his studies must remain attached to his master with a devotion which far exceeds even the most rigorous discipline of any military force. He must take part in the ritual recitations of certain holy and secret scripts, must observe the 5 ritual prayers and ablutions, the annual month of fasting from dawn to sunset, and read the works of the masters. The orders. Several distinct orders, or tariqas, pathways of Sufism, are known. All trace their origins to Muhammad himself and also to his companions. It has been asserted that they originated in a mystical fraternity among the Prophet's immediate followers, the Ashab us-Safa, or companions of the bench. These men, about whom very little is definitely known, immersed themselves in good works, contemplation, fasting, and prayer. Even the derivation of their name is shrouded in mystery. The widest held theories, however, state that they are either named after their woolen robes, suf or wool in Arabic, or from safa, purity. The main orders today are the Naqshbandiya, Chishtiya, Qadriya, and Surawadiya. Each is self-contained in itself, none is inimical to the others, Saints and practices are sometimes held in common. The objectives of mankind, and particularly of the Sufis, are almost identical in each. There are a number of other orders scattered from Morocco to Java, through India, Afghanistan, anywhere, in fact, that Islam has spread. In all cases, rites and writings are highly symbolistic. In every case, admission to an order depends upon sponsorship and initiation. Sufis traditionally hold an important, if undefined, place in both society and history. The dervishes of the Sudan were, and still are, a Sufi order, organized as a militant and nowadays philanthropic entity. In the days of the Ottoman Empire, the greatly feared Janissary shock troops were a military Sufi fraternity, connected with what are today known as the Naqshbandiya. The present king of Libya, Syed Idris, is the chief of a Sufi order, and most, if not all, of his subjects consider themselves Sufis. The Fakir of Ipi, that firebrand of the northwest frontier of India, is a Sufi leader. These brief facts may tend to give the impression that there is much militarism in the different orders. Perhaps the explanation may be that other aspects of the cult are less well known in the West. Reference to them out of context would serve only to confuse the reader. Objects of Sufism. The theory of Sufism is that man, in his ordinary state as part animal, part spirit, is incomplete. All Sufi doctrine and ritual is dedicated towards making the seeker, salik, pure, and therefore insan-i kamil, a perfect man or complete man. It is envisaged that a person may be able to achieve this state of completeness by himself, or even through means other than Sufism, yet it is contended that Sufism is the established way, with its prescribed method and the guidance of the masters who have already trod the path. When the aspirant has attained the state of completeness, which is the goal of the cult, he is then in tune with the infinite, and those strivings and uncertainties to which he, as a mere imperfect mortal, has been subjected, are no more. This ultimate stage of achievement is known as vassal, or union. The monastic life, however, is strongly eschewed by all Sufi thinkers. They reason that if man deprives society of his service and activity, he is being antisocial. Being antisocial is against the divine plan. Hence he must, in the words of the first principle of Sufism, be in the world, but not of the world. The hierarchy of Muslim Sufi saints, therefore, are known by their occupations as well as by their titles. Hence one, Attar, was a chemist. Another, Hadrat Bahuddin Naqshband, was a painter, and so on. Certain kings of India and Persia, upon becoming Sufis, took up some extra occupation to pay for their own upkeep, while still remaining rulers, and taking nothing from the treasury on their own account. The invisible rulership of Sufism. Chief of the entire Sufi system is the Qutub. He is the most enlightened of all Sufis, has attained the degree of vassal, union with the infinite, and holds power over, according to some, the entire Sufi organism. Others say that the Qutub has considerable political or temporal power as well. In any case, his identity is known to very few. He maintains communication only with the leaders of the orders. Conferences are held telepathically, or else by means of time and space annihilation. The latter phenomenon is said to mean that Sufis of the degree of vassal are able to transport themselves anywhere instantaneously, in physical form, by a process of decorporealization. The Qutub is attended by 4 deputies, the Autad, or pillars, whose function is to maintain knowledge of and power over the 4 corners of the earth, and to report to him constantly the state of affairs in every country. Subservient to the Autad are the 40 Abdal, those who have become spiritually changed, and under them, in turn, 70 nobles, who in their turn command 300 lords. Sufi saints who do not hold an actual office in this hierarchy are termed saint, wali. Entry and initiation. Entry into an order is made through one of the many hundreds of branches, or halqa, also known as circles, which flourish throughout the East. Although explanations of the more esoteric aspects of the cult are not forthcoming to any but initiates, it is important to note that his membership of an order is usually not kept a secret by an initiate. In some places, men take their young sons to be present at the rites of the order. Hence many grow up with a curiosity about Sufism, and it may be said to be unusual for the son of a Sufi not to join the order himself. When a candidate for the lowest degree, that of Salik or Seeker, is presented, he may be allowed to attend meetings for some time before being presented formally by his sponsors for enrollment. Acceptance by a chief or pir does not necessarily mean that promotion is likely to follow. This is one of the truly extraordinary facets of Sufism, as opposed to other mystical or secret fraternities. Promotion or elevation in the order, or even the passing of secret knowledge, come to a person automatically as soon as he is ready for it. Unless the aspirant is mature, or pukhta, for enlightenment, he will never progress. Once he has been initiated, however, he will most probably be on the road to success, and if he adheres rigidly to the rites and practices of the order, he will be able to benefit from them. In other words, if, as sometimes happens, a person other than an initiated Sufi attends a Sufi halqa, he may hear all that is being said, he may take part in the repetitions of sacred formulae, he may even join in the ritual circumambulations, but he will derive no enlightenment, no benefit, no understanding therefrom. A striking example of this is the monastery of the Maulavi order in Cyprus, where anyone may attend the strange ceremonies of the dancing dervishes, and the latter are in no way put out by the presence of infidels, uninitiates, or even detractors. It is their unshakable belief that their ceremonies and repetitions of formulae, or dhikr, are efficacious only for those who are initiated. Newcomers, having been introduced into the circle of Sufis, generally attend for several sessions of recitation, repetition of holy phrases, singing or dancing, depending upon the order in question. In relation to music, some orders employ music, others do not even permit recitation, except sotto voce. At a convenient moment in the proceedings, the candidate is presented to the chief of the circle. He may then be asked certain questions to determine his suitability. If he is accepted, the chief takes him by the hands and whispers to this effect in his ears. The recruit is then known as a seeker, and the only remaining rite to be performed to complete his enrollment in the order is the Great Oath. In this, the Salik undertakes to obey his pir, absolutely and without reservation. While nearly every Sufi following the path is a properly coached and entered member of his order, one other form of Sufism is known. This, called Uwaisi, is practiced by those who, while following established Sufi patterns of discipline and thought, are yet affiliated to no order. The name is derived from one Uwais ul-Qarani of Yemen, a contemporary of Muhammad, who is said to have been in spiritual contact with the Prophet in spite of never having met him. Two important facts about Sufism are exemplified in this Uwaisi doctrine. First, it shows the spiritual or telepathic link which forms a significant part of the cult. Just as time has no established meaning to the Sufi, so it is possible for one of their number to be in communication with another who may be far away, or may even be dead. Hence we find important Sufi saints claiming inspiration and cooperation with others whom they may never have met, or else from the spirit of one long dead. Secondly, it is acknowledged by Sufism that progress may be made in the path by one who is not under direct or constant instruction from his pir or master. At the same time, it is emphasized that such cases are rare. The Sufi Path. Following his acceptance by the chief of the halqa, the seeker gains the title of murid, disciple, and must then embark upon the rigorous preparation which will lead him to stage 2, that of tarakat or potentiality. This latter forms the first real degree of Sufism and denotes spiritual progress. Between the first and second degrees, in addition to obeying every instruction of the master, the disciple must not omit any point of the ritual observance of formal Islam. In addition to reading certain prescribed books, he spends as much time as he can on the recitation of dhikrs. These formulae are designed to remedy any defect in belief or ability that may have been discerned by the pir. This is considered to be the period of rededication to the theme of be in the world, yet not of the world. The intention and aim of every seeker at this stage is to concentrate upon the thoughts and personality of the pir. In his turn, the pir turns his thoughts regularly towards those of the disciple, sending him vital spiritual energy to fortify him in the battle against the self. By the self is meant the things of the flesh which detract from true spiritual progress. In the stage of muridi, too, the seeker may take part in the nightly meetings of the dervishes or Sufis in their halqa or monastery. Present at such meetings, and repeating the same dhikrs, may be Sufis in several different stages of advancement. But this will not affect the potency of the dhikrs or the progress of individuals, because it is held that the same dhikr may be of great value in any one of the stages. This is, of course, determined by the pir. When the disciple merits the title of tarakat, either because his pir decides so or because he himself has reached the state of knowing that he has progressed, he transfers his attention from the thoughts of his leader to those of the actual founder of the particular order. At this time, however, the leader keeps his own thoughts focused upon the disciple to reinforce his spiritual powers. It is at this stage that the disciple may be allowed to pursue certain thaumaturgic practices, if his pir decides that it be permissible. His abilities in occult knowledge and actual magical phenomena are great, but he may employ them only with consent. These Sufis are now in the stage of safa'ullah, the journey to knowledge. They must concentrate upon the achievement of oneness with the spirit of the founder of the order, whom they now call pir, in place of the leader whose disciple they are. The leader himself is now known as sheikh or mushid. They travel, often to far countries, at the behest of the murshid. Preaching the cult is not allowed unless they are asked about it, and unless they feel that their questioners may be able to profit by such knowledge. Pilgrimages to Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem, and to other shrines are undertaken. This stage generally takes far longer of attainment than the previous one. It is known and recorded, however, that promotions from a low stage to one of the highest may take place without the intervention of the murshid. After tarakat comes stage 3, arif, the knower. At this point, the seeker dedicates himself to the attainment of unity with the thoughts of Muhammad and has graduated beyond the mind of the founder of the order. This part of the road is known as Safar li Allah, the journey away from neglectfulness. Occult and all supernatural powers are very marked in the stage of arif. The spirit has been all but purged of the detrimental physical aspects and lusts. The self is well under control. All that remains is the summit, the degree of fana, or annihilation. This means the total destruction of all thoughts which separate the seeker from the full knowledge of all things. Farther than this he cannot go, except to stage 5, which involves a return to the baser life in order to purify others. Miracles of the Sufis. Kamaluddin, one of the most important of the Sufi historians, gives a typical example of raising of the dead, as familiar to students of the Naqshbandi order. Qayyum, a Naqshbandi leader, is stated to have revived his granddaughter, even though her death had been certified 3 days before. The saint maintained that she was still alive. It was only when the body was actually showing signs of decomposition, of rapid onset in the Indian climate, that he simply called to her, and she is claimed to have sat up immediately. A large number of miracles are reported of the best-known woman Sufi, Rabia al-Adawiyya, in the 8th century. Her main teaching, as expounded to the few who know her well, was that prayer and the recitation of formulae were the gateway to knowledge and hence to power. She was disinclined to concentrate upon the generally accepted use of prayer as a means towards forgiveness and salvation. Using the formula La ilaha illa Allah, there is no God save Allah, the One, she is reputed to have made fires without wood, obtained food without leaving her house, and been supernaturally supplied with sufficient gold for her needs. She was sold as a slave early in her life. One day her master said that he once noticed that a lamp seemed suspended above her, yet without support of any kind. This experience so troubled him that he immediately set her free, without saying anything to anyone. Sufi miracle workers, in addition to the observance of the ritual prayers and ablutions, employ several principal dhikrs which induce the concentration of mind that enables occult phenomena of almost every type to be produced. Among these achievements are the ability to relieve pain and destroy disease, transportation anywhere in the twinkling of an eye, knowledge of future events and also of what anyone is thinking, even though that person may not be present. Dhikrs of the Sufis. All recitations are performed in a state of ritual purity. The face, arms, feet, and mouth are washed. If the seeker has slept since his last dhikr, he must have a bath. Any other pollution must also be removed by complete immersion. Dhikrs are generally said during the hours of darkness. When a supernatural result is desired, the dhikr must dwell upon some facet of the divine power allied to the effect to be accomplished. Thus, when a Sufi wishes to cure illness, he prepares himself by repeating a dhikr consisting of the name of God which denotes healing. By this means, the Sufi intends to collect in his mind a tremendous potential of mental force associated with healing. This he projects towards the object of his attentions, at the same time concentrating upon the desired result. When a Sufi's aid is invoked to ensure, for example, success in any venture, he will purify himself and spend 3 nights, culminating on a Thursday, reciting the simple formula, Ya Fati, O Victor, one of the attributes of the All-Powerful. On Thursday, the powerful night of the week, the full quota of power will have been built up in his mind. This, at any event, is the theory. He may also give the person a talisman or amulet with a dhikr written on it to wear on his arm. Even today, these dhikr amulets are worn widely among all classes in the Muslim East. It is not uncommon for Sufis to receive a visitation from some important member of the order, perhaps long dead, advising them as to the best course to take in any matter upon which they are uncertain. At the outset of his training, the more esoteric aspects of Sufism are of less concern to the seeker than the attainment of progress through implicit obedience to the formulae of the cult. The root of all such progress is dhikr. Having either been given a set dhikr to repeat, if he is under the direct guidance of a sheikh, or having selected one himself, if he is an owaisi working towards the goal alone, his task is to repeat it with meticulous regard for the times and frequency of its saying. If the formula is said under the breath, dhikr kafi, a rosary with 99 beads is used, one bead being told after each repetition. In the case of dhikr jali, loud repetition, the rosary is often not used. When not attending an actual halqa or circle meeting, the seeker generally goes to some quiet place, or spends his contemplation time in a room set aside for the purpose. There is, too, the exercise known as fikr, which consists of meditation, concentration upon some power that is desired, or upon the immensity of the universe. When dhikr and fikr have been indulged in to such an extent that they become second nature, the superior form of dhikr becomes necessary. This is the control and concentration of breath. The mind is concentrated upon a single idea, and the original dhikr formula or another one is recited, this time in set rhythm corresponding to the breathing. When the dhikr has so sunk into the mind that it is being automatically repeated without conscious effort, then the superior form is used. According to Sufi doctrine, mastery of the thought processes and their linking with the body have been achieved. The purpose of this superior form is the production of the next, and highly important, phenomenon, ecstasy. While it is conceded that ecstasy can come without the dhikrs, yet it is claimed that it cannot be induced so readily by other means. In the state of ecstasy, which may be followed by unconsciousness, the mind undergoes a transformation whose nature is not described. True ecstasy is known by the technical term vajd, and paves the way to katrat, or illumination. Here the mind and soul are liberated from the body, and knowledge and power take the place of the base thoughts of which the mind has been purified. In the Chishti order, music is used to induce the ecstatic state. Some orders claim that their members fall into a trance after looking into the eyes of their sheikh. The so-called dancing dervishes accomplish trance and ecstatic phenomena through monotonous circumambulations, and this is most marked in the Maulavi order, most popular in Turkey. In the ecstatic state, Sufis are believed to be able to overcome all barriers of time, space, and thought. They are able to cause apparently impossible things to happen merely because they are no longer confined by the barriers which exist for more ordinary people. Certain it is that some of their supernatural activities are difficult, at the present state of knowledge, to account for. It will be observed that the general principles to be found in very many systems of religious and occult practice are strangely similar. The principles of leadership, discipleship and discipline, contemplation and monoideism can be found in the secret and not so secret rites of nearly every people. If the wonder workings of the Sufis and Hindu gurus, the African witch doctors and the Amazonian medicine men are to be investigated in a spirit of true science, there can be no question of belief or disbelief. We must admit that we have not conclusively shown that secret esoteric law does not exist. Neither can we explain the similarities on a basis of psychology, that these rites are only symbolic of man's limited and natural strivings for superiority alone. The scope for investigation is extraordinarily wide. I Am, Sufi poem of Mirza Khan Ansari. How shall I define what thing I am? Wholly existent and yet non-existent, through him I am. Whatever becometh naught out of entity, the signification of that nothingness am I. Sometimes a mote on the disk of the sun, at others a ripple on the water's surface. Now I fly about in the wind of association, now I am a bird of the incorporeal world. By the name of ice I also style myself, congealed in the winter season am I. I have enveloped myself in the 4 elements, I am the cloud on the face of the sky. From unity I have come into infinity, indeed nothing existeth that I am not. My vitality is from life's source itself, and I am the speech, every mouth within. I am the hearing sense with every ear, and also the sight of every eye am I. I am the potentiality of everything. I am the perception every one within. My will and inclination are with all. With mine own acts also satisfied am I. Unto the sinful and vicious I am evil, but unto the good, beneficent am I. The 11 Secret Rules of the Initiate in Sufism. Characteristic of all Sufi orders are the rules laid down by the founder, and sometimes added to by his successors, for the conduct and concentration of seekers. These are the indispensable rules of the Naqshbandi order. 1. Awareness of breathing. The mind must be attuned to be secretly aware of everything, even breath. At the same time, the mind must pulsate with thoughts of the infinite, divine essence and omnipotence. 2. Travel in one's own land. It must be remembered frequently that the Sufi is a traveller along the Sufi path. 3. Watching the feet. When walking, the seeker must glue his gaze upon his steps. The secret meaning of this is that he must be aware of where he is going, in a metaphorical sense. 4. Solitude in company. The mind is to be repeatedly concentrated so that, even in company with others, in the midst of distractions, the Sufi may keep his thoughts relevant to his task. 5. Remembering. The Sufi must never forget that he is a dedicated person. 6. Restraint. This refers to short prayers which are used to punctuate the repetitions of the dhikr. 7. Awareness. The mind must become aware that there are many distractions. These are to be combated. 8. Recollection. Concentration must be possible through thinking this word, and without words. 9. Pause of time. During pauses in thinking, the Sufi must recapitulate his actions and examine them. 10. Pause of numbers. Awareness that the required number of repetitions of the dhikr phrase have been completed. 11. Pause of the heart. During this pause, the mind is trained to visualize the seeker's heart bearing the name of Allah.